See, today it has become fashionable to talk about the evil influences of social media on us. We also see movies like the Netflix Social Dilemma on the impact that these large social media companies are having the way in which we think, we buy, we even get into relationship. And we have also seen the impact of social media on even the politics, how we elect our governments, whether it is in the US or in Europe or India or even in our neighboring states. My name is Venkatrangan Thirumalai. What I'd like to do in the next 15 minutes is walk you through my journey of using social media, what I've learned about its influence, and what I have started doing for myself, which I think might be useful to you. There's no preaching here, it's more sharing my story with you. My interaction with social media started way back in 2007, first with Twitter, then with Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. I regularly post when I travel, pictures on Instagram, and also when we used to eat in restaurants, I used to post my food photographs and all that. Things were going very good. Then let's see what happened a little later. Then that's my story, which we'll walk through. Then we'll also understand what social media does really to us. Again, no big yarn. It's just the some points that I've learned, and then what we can do about it. Till 2018, I was very gung-ho about social media. I was very active in social media. And if anybody had told me in 2018, delete the concept of deleting Facebook, Instagram, and all that, I would have thought it to be pretentious and banal. In fact, I used the very same words, pretentious and banal, in my blog post that you see at the bottom. I wrote a long post why it's kind of hypocritic to delete these apps because people got benefited out of it, whether it is networking or relationships or even learning some new things. You benefited out of these apps and then you're talking bad about it. So I wrote these in 2018. But I didn't realize in the next 1 year things would kind of change. I'll give you a background on why I say that. I'm always a zero inbox guy, meaning I like to always read my emails. I have my emails as zero. I like to take actions on that. If I can't take actions, if something needs a bit more research or a bit more action, then I push it to my to-do list. But I like to keep my email zero. Even with about 200 clients and 200 colleagues, the things were easier to manage because nobody used to mail you with jokes, or not many people used to email you jokes and waste your time. But things changed with WhatsApp, with all the school alumni groups or college alumni groups, your friends network, your family network, and all that. There are so many groups. And there was also interest group. You suddenly see somebody talking about stamp and they say, do you want to get us into our WhatsApp group? You say yes. And then they suddenly start sending you all the messages. And the same WhatsApp message comes in every different group. That becomes a problem. So that's, and I was taking this compulsive addiction about the zero inbox onto WhatsApp also. And that proved extremely difficult to do. That's when in 2019 I wrote my next blog post sharing my experience on why I think it's this. I have to change my behavior, that what I considered to be banal and pretentious in 2018, I have to change because I was spending too much time on this. Another example, on Facebook, you start your day at 9:30, you work till 11:30, you get tired and you have a coffee, you start checking out what's in Facebook or what's in WhatsApp, and the next 1 hour goes, and then you have to rush your lunch because you have to come back on a client call, you have to start working on something. And I was realizing I'm spending more time on Facebook and WhatsApp than actually on my work or on my reading. That became a problem. So what I did as the first step, I got another mobile number, moved all the groups from WhatsApp onto that. I requested all the groups that I was part of, the industry groups, the college groups, the friends group, the interest group, and all that. I was only keeping my immediate family, the direct numbers, and some very important family groups for me. That's all. Everything else I moved on to my second WhatsApp number, and that phone I kept it in my house, and I made it a point that I only look at that phone every day once in the evening after I finish all that work. Some amount of sanity started coming to me. Then I deleted all the social media apps except LinkedIn, which I kept it on my phone so that when I meet a customer, I can search their name and figure out their details in LinkedIn. And I was only using the Facebook and Instagram and Twitter only on my PC. So this meant I have to make a conscious effort of launching my browser and then typing Facebook, and that's a level of difficulty I was putting in so that I reduce my thing. More than reduction, it was about when do I spend the time. I finish all my work and then start looking at Facebook. I was still active in Facebook. It's not that I reduced my usage. I was only reducing the time. I was more controlling the time, and when I was doing it to the evenings, things became very good. And it also meant at that time I discovered, or kind of rediscovered, this site, Reddit, which is very popular. Many of you might be already there. But here, unlike Facebook and Twitter, I'm not promoting Reddit, it's just a behavior I've observed. Here, the discussion tends to be more focused on a topic rather than on people. And you don't get into topics that you're adversely affect. If you're left, you don't join a right group. If you're right, you don't join a left group. Similarly, you're an atheist, you don't join on a religious group, or the vice versa. So it's very clear. You pick up the topics that you're really interested in on, and there are good conversations, deep conversations I found out happening on these subreddits. And surprisingly, I also found out in Reddit there are rules, like you see on the right hand side. For the Star Trek group, there are rules which basically says be respectful. That's what we were always taught. When did it become good to be not respectful? Probably in social media. If you're not respectful, you started getting more likes. So that doesn't make us any different. We are still humane. We are nice people. Don't rant. Nobody wants you to talk about 200 pages on an opinion. You have just be precise. Like writing an email, you have to be short. If you want your email to be read by your boss or your colleagues or your clients, write it short. Don't write it like the famous saying Mark Twain. I didn't have time, otherwise I would have written short. But whether Mark Twain said it or not is not proven. But then the art, if you really want somebody to follow you, like you, be very, 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 very short. Okay, so don't rant. Assume good faith, stay on topic, so on and so forth. There are multiple rules in every subreddit. If you don't follow, the bots kick you out, or the moderators or the host kick you out. There is some kind of sanity and discipline in many of these subreddit. There may be other groups like Reddit. You could be following Hacker News or things like that. But then pick up a platform that where you can have good conversations. Don't just spend your time on Facebook, which is not the ideal platform for many of in-depth conversations. The other thing that also happened, I started spending more time on my blog. I was writing more. The first place that I was writing now became blog rather than social media. Earlier, I used to post something in social media, then get into blogs. Now I kind of figured out getting into social media, instead of social media, going into blogs is actually better. I started writing more. Now, in the last 15 years, I've been writing my blogs. I have close to about 3,000 posts, and I have about 1.44 million page views with about 700,000 users. So that traffic also kind of kept maintaining as I started spending more time on my blog. And this is a content that I own. I'm not writing for anybody else. Of course, you need to go and promote it on Facebook and Twitter. Otherwise, nobody is going to come and read your blog other than organic searches. But then it's the data is in your control. So that happened. Things were going extremely good. I was happy. I was less stressed. I was less anxious, and I was even sleeping better. Believe me, in between the 2018 and 19, when I realized my social media behavior is very high, I was not sleeping well. I was not able to get sleep up to 2 o'clock because I wanted to know whether I got a like or whether I got a comment on a particular thing I posted at 10 p.m. Please don't post anything before you go to bed. That's a worst idea because you can't, if you posted anything bad, you can't delete it, you can't correct it. And you'll also be kept worrying the next 2-3 hours on whether people liked it or commented, and you won't be able to fall asleep. So please don't post anything before you go to sleep. As the old saying goes, please sleep on it and then post it. But everything was going great, but this happened. That's the pandemic. And when the pandemic happened, we were all locked in our houses. So we were all locked in our houses, and we were all going to information what's happening, because in March, April, we didn't know anything about this pandemic. So I started installing these apps back on my phone, or even if I was sitting in PC, we were all sitting in front of our PC because we were in our houses. I started spending more time on social media. So all the good things I did in 2019 got undone in 2020. The other thing that also happened in the same time frame in the pandemic in the last 7-8 months, I also installed Google News. A very bad decision, because this was giving so much perfect news that I started reading every time I went to this. Even in half an hour once, it was having 10 stories that I was really interested in reading. And I was reading each and every story that Google recommended me, about movies, about entertainment, about travel. Everything was to my liking. It became better and better and better. And I wrote a blog post that you see on the bottom that more than Facebook and Twitter, Google News became more addictive to me because these are professionally made content. That's when I realized something got to change, because I was not being productive. I was wasting serious amount of time on these platforms. Before I can act on this, I wanted to understand what is happening. Again, I said no big yarn, just 4 slides on what I personally think. This is not an expert opinion, this is my personal experience about kind of what's happening with the social media as you start using it more and more. The first thing, of course, this is a statistics. I was feeling more depressed, more cynical about the world. All of us were feeling. Initially, I thought it's more about because of the pandemic that in April, March, April, May, we were very anxious whether the world is going to come to end, whether humanity is going to end, whether we will live, what's going to happen. And that time, because of our more increased usage of the social media, which was putting us more and more of these negative news onto us, I was feeling depressed. I was starting to feel more anxious. My sleep patterns again became erratic. And that's when I saw this report. You can go and look at this report from NIH, the National Institute of Health in the US. They categorize people with depression: normal, mild, moderate, severe. All of us have depression. It's at various levels of thing. Only at severe thing it became extremely worrisome. But then we all go through phases of depression, but we all get out of it. We also feel different levels of depression. But social media, irrespective of which level of depression you are, it increases your level of depression and it makes you more and more anxious. So be cognizant of this fact. The other thing, this is a term again I read when I started researching on this topic. People are calling a term called chaotic evil. I believe this comes from Dungeons and Dragons. If you're playing that game, you might be familiar with this. But the thing is, all of us humans have an inbuilt mechanism to manage good and evil, to distinguish between what is good, what is bad. We don't normally go and steal because that's like embedded into our brain. That is bad. We don't go and throw something, or we don't go and eat somebody. These are all bad things. And you could be looking at even more bigger evils, but it's all ingrained in our mind. We also know what is good. When we go and donate something, we feel it's good. We generally don't do bad things. We are all able to identify evil. Like we, in a particular locality in a city, we know bad things happen there. Pickpocket happens or stealing happens. We don't go there. Or even in the school or office, office is a bad example. In school, we know certain people, certain kids might be bad influence. We don't stay with them. So we are able to identify good and bad very easily because there is a pattern which we can recognize, our brain can recognize. But what happens with social media is that these evilness are randomized and come at an exponential rate in which we can't process. Because you're talking to billion or 2 billion people out there, and your brain hasn't evolved to handle 2 billion random messages that's coming at you, or random evilness that's coming at you. So it's all chaotic. When things are chaotic, our brain kind of switches off. It's good and the evil categorization, categorizer. So we're not able to handle it. So the whole idea is, when these things become so chaotic, so randomized, we are not able to handle or make sense of it. So that's called chaotic evil. That's why even when you are able to tell somebody or reading something in a book, you don't get influenced, but you get influenced on social media. One reason that people attribute is this randomness, this chaotic nature. In Dungeons and Dragons, I believe whatever I read about it, it's about the individual. It's about the freedom of an individual for maximum gain. It's about boosting your ego. That's also connected to this chaotic evil. The third thing that happens is, a lot of the experts, a lot of people in psychology are talking social media and our phone, to be precisely, and social media on it to be our digital pacifier. Just like today, doctors are recommending, pediatricians are recommending pacifiers are not good for kids, other than very limited usage. Whenever we feel like let down, we are sad, we have lost something, we immediately pick up our phone, and that becomes a pacifier. We feel that we are connected to the world. Being connected is good, but the same connection of being connected also makes you feel lonely. It's a double-edged sword. You are connected, but you are lonely, and that's why we are using our phones as a digital pacifier. And all these things, the three things that I'm talking and the one I'm going to talk next, these are things that are happening. These are behaviors you have to watch out for. Be cognizant of it. Don't be judgmental. Just because you are picking up your phone doesn't make you a bad person. And I believe in a book my friend Mr. Jasprit Brinda has written called Tech Whisperer, I believe each of us pick up our phones 2000 times a day. Yes, it is 2000 times a day. You might want to study and measure it, but it's literally hundreds of times every day. Every single day we pick up our phone, and when we pick it up, there is a cacophony of information out there. When you pick up, each and every app has notifications, is shouting, is beeping, is giving a sound, and so on and so forth. In that cacophony, Jasperi Binda feels a whisper, somebody talking silently on your ear. coming and whispering to you very softly, very mildly, that will be heard by you. But if everybody is shouting with increased and increased and increased and increased amount of volume, you're not going to hear it. And that's what is happening today with our phones and social media. We're also using this as a time filler. Whenever we sit in for a doctor, whenever we in between tasks, or when we are just bored, we want a break, we are using our social media as a time filler. A friend of mine used this term called elevator music. It's beautiful. You're in an office, if in a lobby, you can hear the elevator music. It just fills the whole space. That's what the elevator music is supposed to. It's kind of the atmosphere. So it fills all your time. Even if you have 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours of free time of not doing any work, social media and your phones will fill it up. Be cognizant of that fact. So what can we do? We saw 4 behaviors. What can you do about it? I like to show you a focused app that I built to handle that, and then about some examples and what you can do, and then we'll wrap it up. 4 years back, when in our office we started experimenting with machine learning, we wanted to build something on our own. I created this app called Simplic. It was not created for the social media addiction, but then I believe it also has a usefulness for it. What it does is it just shows you one single news, and only one single news. There's no control. There's no, you can just scroll and read a story. You can't share, you can't like, you can't do anything. There's no control. To read the next story, you have to close the app and launch it again. That is an amount of friction brought in. But the idea of this app is to pick up only one story based on your behavior, what we know about you, all the signals we know about you, and give you one and only story that you are likely to read. You don't read it, you immediately quit it. That's a signal to us that you have not read the story. You have scrolled and read the full story. That's another signal. And the idea of that is to be very predictive on the story. We wanted to learn, we improved our machine learning for that, which we used in rest of our other content management products. But when I was addicted to this Google News, that's when I realized, I came back and thought about Simplic. Of course, we didn't release this as a professional product. We did apply for a patent in the US for it, and we got a provisional patent, but we didn't take it as a commercial product. But when I was using Google News and became addicted to it, that's when I realized an app like this Simplic could be really useful to give people the news and not waste their time and not make them addictive. So you might want to pick up an app that's very precise, makes you get in, get out, not make you waste your time. I'll give you 2 examples on what we can do on our social media experiences, very practical examples. There's a number of examples, but I like to stop it with this two. This is by a gentleman I know, a friend of mine. Let me call him as Mr. R. You can go and look him up in Facebook. It's all public in my timeline. I had posted an interview that I listened to Zogo CEO, Mr. Sridhar Vembu. It was a phenomenal interview, shared about what he's doing with Tamil Nadu village schools. He's going to multiple villages and teaching them in this pandemic. And you know Zogo. Zogo is a very successful Indian startup. And Sridhar shared multiple things, and I posted about the entire notes from his interview, kind of summary I posted in my blog and shared it on Facebook. That's when Mr. R is an amateur historian. He was a former Microsoftian. I have a lot of respects about the history research that he does. He posted this. If you read it, he said Sridhar Vembu had criticized Bill Gates. Do you know about it? Especially about the Common Core education in the US. Yes, I do know about it. And Bill Gates is somebody who, when I started my business 25 years back, I was attracted to Bill Gates. I'm a fan of him. I've read all his books. He's my role model. And of course, my connections with Microsoft as a partner and as a regional director. On the first instance of reading this comment, I wanted to immediately defend, oh no, Bill Gates is damn good. I know about this program, education program. It did a lot of good into the US. Bill Gates is also doing a lot of things about vaccine. He's a fabulous guy, so on and so forth. But then I took a deep breath. I realized I don't need to defend Bill Gates, and he has an entire office to manage probably social media, and they can do it. It's not my job. My love for Bill Gates doesn't mean that I have to be a spokesperson. So you could replace Bill Gates, you could replace with this Common Core, you could replace Wembu with whatever it's happening on your timeline. But the bottom line is, just because you like something, you don't need to defend it. You just speak what you have to speak. If you can keep quiet, nothing like it. So that's why I wrote, I have great admiration and respect. It's not lie. I respect everything about Wembu had done. It's phenomenal. And it's not needed that I have to agree everything with that Wembu said. I can disagree with him. People are not black and white. There are gray. People are, one of my mentors always used to say, Venkat, you can't get people black and white. There are no good and bad people. There are different percentages of good and bad. When you hire a particular person, he can't be the best person or the worst person. They are in between. You have to evaluate that, and in the scale evaluate which side are they, and then choose people. So people are always great. There are good things, there are bad things. In this case, I like a lot of things that Mr. Wimbo does, respects to him, but I will listen to his Bill Gates comments. Even if he has said, I don't need to defend. It's for Bill Gates and his office and for Mr. Wimbo. That's not my problem. So I just kept it. I just said what I have to say and kept quiet. This is another fabulous example I saw recently, I think yesterday, by Fahim Yunus. You might have seen in NDTV interviews and all that. He's a director of infectious diseases in University of Maryland Hospital, somebody who's at the forefront of this pandemic in the US, and he has been tweeting regularly every single day. And this is somebody calling him this tweet. Look at what this person has called him. And Fahim Yunus is only sharing his experience and the science right from the trenches. You don't call somebody like that. But see the way Fahim Yunus has handled it. He said, bro, why broadcast such language for your employer and family? He has taken him on strides, not many people. I'm not sure whether I can take it on this stride and I have this much of language to take it upon. If you have, handle it. Otherwise, keep quiet. Otherwise, handle it like the Mr. R example that I gave you in previous. Lastly, what I found out now, what am I doing now? I didn't delete these apps, but I've been replacing them with other good content that I can read. Yes, I again deleted them on my phone, kept them on my PC. I didn't delete the accounts or anything, but in my phone, I started installing Kindle and Pocket. I was bookmarking a lot of the long form articles that I always wanted to read, but I never read it because of time. I've been bookmarking them on Pocket. And when I have this free time, the time fillers that we were looking at, I was picking up Pocket and reading those articles on not Facebook or LinkedIn on my phone. I was also buying more books on Kindle and reading them, even a couple of pages every single day. I was reading more books on parallel. One thing I learned about Dr. Kalam, our former president, is that he reads multiple books, multiple subjects parallelly. There are 5 or 6 books he reads at every point in time, and that I found to be an interesting way of reading. So instead of just deleting these apps or removing it from your phone, replace it with good things that you want to spend your time on, which will make you less anxious. Lastly, boredom is also good. Science proves in this article, if you go and see, your brain needs this rest. That's when your brain actually recomposes. It makes from your temporary memory to permanent memory. It also connects. More of those neuron intersections actually happen when you are boredom. And these intersections are proven are extremely important for us to be creative. So more boredom you are, technically speaking, at least your brain is resting. It is also making all these connections that will make you more smarter. So just because you are continuously reading and continuously pushing more and more information to you won't make you smarter. You have to rest. As our parents used to say, the day before the exam, have a good sleep. Only if you do, whatever you've read registers in your brain. So boredom is good. And kind of a summary, this is a set of rules I talked about in a talk that I gave about social media in 2010. And I think pretty much all of them are valid even today. Think before you post. Think twice before you post on social media. Discretion is appreciated. There is nothing 100% private in social. Remember that. Just because you set it only to your friends group doesn't mean that somebody can't take a screenshot, somebody can't save it, and somebody can't repost, so on and so forth. And always see what you are posting in social media. If it comes on the newspaper tomorrow, will it ruin your life? Will it ruin your marriage? Will it ruin your job? Think about it. And is it really necessary? Are you the expert on the particular subject? Is somebody directly asking you, are you going to make a change? Do all these questions to yourself. I'm not saying curtail your freedom, but think. Your friends also value your privacy. Whenever I travel, I never post my friend's photograph without their permission in Instagram or Facebook. And I'll never, or I refrain mostly posting my kid photograph or my family photograph. Privately identify information. Don't, when you're going on a travel, don't take a photograph of your hotel room number and post, we're all enjoying, we're having a damn good time. And then somebody coming and stealing when you're not in your room, then don't complain to the police because you posted it on Facebook where you're staying in this particular trip. I generally come back and post about my family trip, not while I'm there. And even then I don't post my family photos. Be discreet about your profile photograph. You don't want photographs in your profile, remember your prospective buyer or your next investor also looks at your LinkedIn profile, also looks up at your Instagram, Facebook before they make a decision. So the profile photograph need not be corporate, need not be professional, but that shouldn't be also like a bar photograph that you posted, which you don't want to be seen on the newspaper front page, like the test we talked about. And don't call out your boss as a jerk. Remember, this boss could also be your boss in your next job or your future job. Remember all that. Lastly, this is a topic that is I'm quite passionate about. I'm also learning myself. I'm trying to be a better person in social media. I'm trying to handle my time better. So if you have comments, I'd like to hear from you and learn from you. Let's continue the conversation. You can always follow me at social media at these URLs and also at my blog that I've shown here. Thank you so much. Have a great day.